Hi guys, welcome to another Divi theme video. This is Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Well, today we're going to look at the Divi contact form. If I just roll down here, Divi comes with an inbuilt contact form and you can do many things with it. Really easy to use, and of course a contact form is essential for any website. So let's get started. I'll take you through it and show you how to set it up. I'm going to add a new page. Let's call it contact, and of course use the Divi builder. I'm going to select build from scratch, and for this particular demonstration I'll use a single column in my row. It's going to prompt us to add a Divi module. Funnily enough, I'm going to use a contact form. And there we have it. It puts in by default a few fields here. Let's just dock this on the side so you can see the whole thing there. By default, it puts in a name, an email, and a message form. Opens up under the Contact tab. To add a new field, hit the Add New Field button. Down here we've got Field ID. I'm going to call mine Subject. You can call yours anything that you want. I tend to keep mine the same as the actual field, because it makes it easier to organize things and you can instantly recognize things. So I'll call the field title subject to 2. And you may have noticed it's put it in right here. If we now go down to the tab below in the field options, you can choose what type of field it is. If you left click on that there, you've got an input field, which is a general input field for adding text, an email field for putting email addresses, a text area, which is usually a larger area like this, check boxes where they can check a box, radio buttons, little buttons, and I'll do a couple of these in a moment just to show you what's going on, and drop down list. I'm going to leave mine on an input field because that's what it is right there. Now just below the field type you've got maximum length. You can choose a maximum length of characters if you want to. There's a little question mark by all of these. If you just click on it, it'll give you a little hint of what goes on there. It says if you leave it to 0, there's no restrictions. You can do the same for maximum length also, and you can choose to allow or deny symbols by clicking on there. You can say letters only, numbers only, obviously you use that for a telephone number, and alphanumeric only, which will not allow any other symbols than letters or numbers. I'm going to leave mine on all. I'm sure you know what a required field is. If you have this set to yes, they cannot send this email unless they fill out that particular field. If we look down below, we've got conditional logic, and I'll demonstrate this briefly in a little while. I'll do a whole video on conditional logic because it's really clever stuff. Down below that, we've got the usual link if you want to link the whole module to somewhere, which is probably not necessary on contact form, but I'm sure somebody can think up a scenario for that. And obviously, if you're linking to your own site, leave it in the same window. If you're linking off-site, open it in a new tab. That way your site's going to stay open. And of course, we've got all the regular background styling options down here. Color, gradient, image, background video, background pattern, or background mask. I'm going to leave mine on the generic right there for the time being. When you're happy, hit the little green check to save your changes. It'll take you back to the main contact form settings. Now, if you don't like where your subject field is, you can simply left click on it, drag it up, drop it where you want it. Now, you may have noticed that a couple of these fields are shorter than the rest. This is full width, this is full width, this is half width right here. To change either way, go to the field you want. Let's go into name right here. If we go over to design, we've got layout. And you can choose to make it full width if you want to. And obviously anyone that's full width, you can do the opposite, make it half width if you want to, and fit 2 on a line. Let's save that, and we'll do exactly the same for the email address down below there. Design, layout. I'm going to make that full width. And these design options, you've got them in each field, but you've also got them in the main contact form settings as well. So if I go over to our design tab here, we've got the fields. You can style the fields any way that you want. You can give them a select background color. Just for fun, I'll put a blue in there. to show you what's going on. I'll click on the field. I'm going to take that opacity down so it's a real light blue. Opacity just makes it fade into the white background there. The white background's bleeding through that blue there. Field text color. Obviously make that any color that you want there. Let's make it black. That'll stand out well on that blue. Field's focus background color is if they click on a field. Let's make that white. It'll go white when they click on the field. You can give your fields margin and padding. Just click off of that so you can see that. A margin will put more space top and bottom around a field. For instance, if I give it 50 pixels on the top, it's pushed the whole thing down by 50 pixels. If I put it on the bottom, it's added 50 pixels to the bottom here. And you can do the same left, right if you want to. Padding is going to make these fields wider. For instance, if I put 20 pixels on the top, it's added a bit to the top of that field. If I up that, that'll make it more easy for you to see. If I make that 50, as you can see, it's put 50 pixels on the top there. And as with all Divi padding, if you hit the chain, it'll do the same for the bottom. If you don't like what you've done, simply select it, delete it. It'll go back to how it was initially. Down below, you can change the font that you want to use with your fields. And Divi has got a crazy amount of font. Just click on it. It'll open up. To audition one, just roll over it. It'll give you an example of that particular font. I'm going to leave mine on the default today. Font weight, you can up it. Depending on the font you use, you'll have several options here. You can make it whatever you want. Bold makes it a lot heavier, obviously. That's why they call it weight. Light makes it a lot lighter. I'm going to leave mine on regular. You've got all the regular font styles: italicize, capitalize, upper and lower capital, underline, and strike through if you want to. Choose what works for you. I'm going to leave mine on the regular again. Text alignment, self-explanatory. By default, it's on the left. You can put it in the middle or the right. You can try and justify it, but that's not going to do much with a single word. I'm going to leave mine on the left default, I think. Here, obviously, field text size. You can make the text any size you want, either slide up, slide down, type in a value. You can also increment up and down with the little arrows to fine tune there. Letter spacing, obviously, that's the space between the letters. If you want to space them out, you can do. Field line height is the space below lines of text. And if you increase that, it'll increase the space around the text. For instance, if I pull this up, you'll see those fields getting deeper, a bit like we're adding padding, but it's doing it with the actual line height of the text itself. And again, if you don't like it, delete it. It'll go back to the default for you. If you want to, you can put a text shadow on there. It's not going to work too well with this style writing. It'll probably make it look a bit blurry. I'll just demonstrate for you. I think text shadow works either best with larger text, or if you've got light text, you can get some great lighting effects by using a light color on a dark background behind there. I'm going to take mine off. I don't think that's necessary for my form today. Just down below that, we've got text. You've got the usual things of alignment here and text shadow, and that will do everything, your subject and everything like that. And I'll cover that in a minute. You've got separate for the title text. Let's put a title text in there so you can see what I'm talking about. Under the content tab, under the fields, we've got text. If you want to put a title in, you can do so right here. As you can see, that's appeared up there. The success message down below is what happens after they submit this, is what's going to pop up on screen. So put in whatever makes sense to you. Submit button, you can have it say submit. If you want it to say something else, just type it in there. And as you can see, that's changed that text right there. If we go down here, down below, here's the really important one, email. Now remember, we're on the content tab in the main contact form settings. Click on email. email address. This is where you actually want to have your email sent to. So that's going to be you at your email address at myemail.com. Whatever your email address is. Message pattern. Well, if we go back up here, we look in this field right here. Each of the fields, if you remember, has a field ID and a field title. We can use the field ID to create a message pattern so we get all the results of these any way we want. By default, it'll give you most of this, but you can decide what you want to see in message pattern. Get out of here. Roll back down to the email there, message pattern. To do this, you have to use the field IDs and put them in percentage signs. And don't worry, as this is a beginner's video, I'll probably cover this in a new complete video. Most of the time you don't need to fill this out at all. But if you want a specific way that you see the name, subject, email, address and message, you can do it in here by putting double percentage signs, the field ID, and more double percentage signs. And you can go down and say, well, I want to see the name first, then I want to see the email. Don't want to see the subject, and then the message underneath. And when you get sent that email, that's the format that it'll appear in your inbox. And like I say, I'll do a whole video on this because it's pretty important stuff. Because it's a great way of deciding what data you want to collect. Down below, we've got a redirect. Now, by default, when they hit the reach out or submit button, it's just going to send this and pop up with a message, your message has been sent, or whatever you've typed in your message. If you want to, you can redirect them elsewhere by flipping this switch to on, putting the URL where you want to take them in here. Once they submit, if you want to take them to another page, put that page URL in there. If you want to take them to another website, you can put that in there if you want to. I'm going to leave mine to off this particular form. Rolling on down, we've got spam protection. At the moment, we've got a basic capture on there. It does actually work. If you do get targeted by a bot, though, you're probably going to want to up that. If you want to, you can turn that off completely. If you've got a hidden form somewhere or something. You can also use a third-party spam protection service such as Google Recapture, and you'll need to have an account and an API key to be able to do that, and we'll cover that in future videos. Down below we've got link. It's exactly the same. You don't want to link this particular module when they click on it to anywhere. Background, fairly self-explanatory. A bit of dark background for a bit of fun. As you can see, that's giving it a dark background there. Now you can put padding all around it to give it a little bit of space in between. You do that over in design. You'll always find padding and margin in design under spacing. If you want to give it a bit of breathing room all around, you don't really want those fields buffered up against the sides there. Use padding, because remember, padding's the internal space from the outside of the module to the content, whereas margin is the outside of the module, pushing it up, down, left, right, etc. So let's give it a little space all around. I'm just going to put in 30 pics. Just put in 30, it'll put pics in for you. Hit the chain, we'll do the other side, and we'll do the same for left and right. And as you can see, that's just giving it a bit of breathing room there. If you want to add a border to your field, you can do so right here. With border, we've got inputs, rounded corners, and these are for the input fields here. If I give them perhaps 20 pixels, you'll notice that these have got rounded corners there. Let's just go to these fields and put them how you can see them a little bit better. So I'm going to close that up quickly. We'll go into the fields, make those fields white again, and bring that opacity up. The reason they went so dark, we put that background in there. We had opacity enabled, which made it feed through that darker color there. And you can get some great effects by doing that sort of thing. Great. Well, that makes it a lot easier to see, doesn't it? Good. Well, let's close that back up and we'll go back to where we were, which was working on the borders here. You can actually put a border around each field if you want to. You can do all around, top, right, bottom, or left separately. Just give it the width you want. Let's maybe just give it 1 pixel. I'll give it a color. Let's give it a purple right there. If I up that to 2 or 3 pixels, you should see that little purple right there. I'm going to actually change that to white. Be a little more obvious. I'm going to take it back down to 1. The only reason I'm going to do that, if we go down below, we've got box shadow. And as I mentioned before, we've got a dark background here, so the box shadow is really not going to make it stand out too much. But if I put something like this that's got a little shadow all around it, roll down a bit and give it a bright color, perhaps that purple or even something like that, you can achieve a little glow around the edge. I'm not sure if you can see that. If I brighten that color, you might be able to see that a little bit better, but you can get some wonderful effects by playing around with things like that. And of course, in the color, you can change it to anything you want. That makes it a little more obvious there. Does mess with my eyes a little bit. I'm going to change it back to that purple. But play with these, you can get some absolutely fantastic effects going. And if you don't want it quite so pronounced, just pull the blur strength down a little bit, or pull it up a bit if you want more of an effect. And of course, you can change the horizontal, vertical position, and the strength of it right here. You can take that down slightly. It pulls it into its more of a border type effect. More over here, it disperses it into a more blurred effect, obviously. Let's put that back to the original, and we'll put that to the original. I'm going to leave it just like that. At the moment, it's set to outer shadow. You can put it to inner shadow if you want to. And let's put that actually inside these boxes. And if you play with shadows, like I say, you can get some amazing effects going. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Just wanted to demo that for you. Filters. We've done a whole video on filters. You can do crazy things with the colors by changing the hue and saturation, brightness, contrast. You can invert it till it's the exact opposite. You can do some wonderful things. I do encourage you to go in and play with these filters to get some fantastic effects. And don't forget, if you do something and you don't like it, simply select it and delete it. It'll go back to how it was for you. Now that's great. Let's go back here and I'll just show you a couple of checkboxes and things like that. We're pretty much covered here. Now the only thing that you can't do with the Divi default contact form is add an attachment. But we've got plenty of videos on how to add a contact form with attachment to Divi. It's really easy and there's plenty of free options out there to do that. And we'll cover that in future videos also. So just for fun, let's add a couple of checkboxes and radios just so you can see what they do. I'm sure most of you know what those are. Let's say radio. As you can see, it's popped a new field in there. Let's go to field options. Let's use radio buttons for this. And you want to have a couple of options, whatever they are. Yes, I'll keep this very simple. And no. And obviously, you want to make that text visible down there. To edit the actual field itself, you can go straight to it, hit the little paintbrush by it. It'll take you to the design options for that. Field text color, I'm going to just turn that to white so you can see it. That's great. And let's go back to where we were, which was in the field options here. And obviously, you can decide whether it's a required field or not with that switch. With radio buttons, you can only select one or the other. And you can add more buttons, obviously. Now, conditional logic. What I'm going to do is add a new field for this. So let's save this. I'm going to add a new field. I'm going to call it car. You'll see why in a minute. For its title, I'm going to say, do you like cars? And this is stupid, but it's just an example. As you can see, that's popped that in there. But I only want this field to turn up if they click yes. So to make that happen, we can go down into our conditional logic below. We'll enable it. Here you can choose whether to meet any requirements or all requirements, because you can make this pretty complex. I'm going to keep it very simple today because we'll do a whole video on this. Let's make a rule. So we only want this to happen if the radio button equals yes. You can choose yes, no, or maybe. We only want this field to show up if they say yes. You can have it equals yes, does not equal, is greater than, is less than, numbers and things like that, contains certain characters, does not contain, is empty, is not empty. There's plenty of options, and like I say, you can get some wonderful things going. Here's a simple example. So we've enabled this field. If they click on the yes, it's going to pop up with this. And then you could do another one underneath and have logic on it. If they say yes, do you like cars? You could have brands underneath or something like that. We'll demonstrate it. And then, of course, down below, we've got the link and background. So we're pretty happy with most of this. We've covered most of the bases here. The advanced, you've got your regular options, CSS IDs and classes. We'll be covering these in future videos. Custom CSS, one of my favorite things to do. We'll be covering this too. Don't need to know any of this for a basic contact form though. Conditions, you can decide when it's actually displayed. Again, this is worth a whole video. Visibility, we've covered this. You can have completely different forms, build a completely different form and have one on tablet, mobile and desktop. Transitions, we don't need to do any transitions with this really. We've got no hover effects going on. Position, we don't need to change that at all. And I don't think I want any scroll effect on this. And again, we'll be doing some scroll effects in different videos. So I'm fairly happy with that. Actually, let's just style our title over here. And you'll find that in design. Here's the title text. Let's make it bold. I'll leave it on the regular font. I'm going to make it uppercase. I'm going to pop it in the middle. And I'll make it white in color. And I want to give it a bit more breathing room. So I'm going to use title line height for that, just to knock those fields down a little bit away so it's got its own space up there. But let's change that to semi-bold, I think. Great. And let's leave that right there. I'm going to go down. I'm going to save my changes. Hit the little purple button. Save draft or publish if you're ready. Exit the visual builder. And there it is, we've got our contact form. And the first thing you may notice is there's no do you like cars field. We know that because we created conditional logic to not have it appear. So obviously they can fill it out, put their name, subject, email address, whatever their message is. If I hit no, nothing's going to happen. If I hit maybe, nothing's going to happen. If I hit yes, got that little field appear there. So there you go, guys. There's a brief overview of the Divi contact form. Really essential thing to have on your site. Plenty of options to play with. You can make these things look wonderful and get the info that you need. I hope you've enjoyed this today and found it useful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, ring the bell, comment, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget, if you have any questions, pop them down below. I'll do my best to answer them for you, or make a little demo video like this one. Once again, this has been Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.